Hello, welcome to the Futurist Mindset Show. My name is Tessa, and I'm here to introduce you to Reagan Rodriguez. Reagan is a futurist that teaches stratosphere wealthy legacy families how to become impact investors. Hi, Reagan. How are you?
I am doing better than I deserve, and I am excited about kind of getting started with this
Good.
because Angelo he's got quite the dynamic personality. So I am looking forward to this.
I
Wonderful.
appreciate the kind words.
Yeah,
Yeah, so tell us about Angelo. So introduce him to us.
sure. Well, as you know, not every project that comes to me am I able to get them funding, right? And so what I do is I have a lot of conversations with people and I kind of make acquaintances with them and most of the time I'm not able to do something. It would almost be too good to be true if it was the other way around, that the majority of the time I am. Therefore, as you might imagine, Tessa, when I'm not able to get them funding because my investors maybe look for something else, I, I really don't keep in touch with them. Okay. I mean, I can't, right? We only have so much time in a given day. However, Angelo is somebody that I thought, this is a really, like we mentioned before, really a cool guy, right? And I thought he's quite an innovator. And I thought, hey, if this guy is the next like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, I mean, I'd like to keep in touch with this guy. So we connected on LinkedIn. Every once in a great while, he'll like some of my posts. Well, the other day, Jimmy, who works for me, Jimmy Sevilla, that you know, said, hey, Regan, this is kind of strange. Some guy reached out to me via LinkedIn, claims he once sat down, but I know you. You're not going to keep in touch with someone if you can't do anything. You know, what is this guy like lying? And I'm like, no, you're right. I normally don't keep in touch with people I can't help, but this guy is really cool. You ought to connect with him on LinkedIn. You'd love the guy as well. So Jimmy's like, if you're still keeping in touch with this guy, there must be a reason. So with that being said, I did later have another Zoom meeting with Angelo, and I'm like, look, it sounds like you've been doing great even without my help. You're almost like, can I say it, 95% capacity right now,
I
Angelo?
would I would say that, yeah.
And I thought that's awesome. You've gotten great results without hiring an experienced kind of investment banker or even at your age. Very impressed. So I said, it sounds like you just need maybe one or two people to put in some money and then boom, you're good. So I referred Angelo to three, four people I know, I think it was, and you've connected with them, and all of them said, man, this guy was great. Thank you for referring him to me. So from there, I thought, how else can I help Angelo? And I thought, why don't we do a video like this so that you tell him a little bit about you. I understand that you have a lot of intellectual property. You've got patents, you've got things like that that you can't share too much. Okay. So we're not asking you to, we're going to use wisdom here. What I'd like you to do is, in a few words, in your own words, can you tell us a little bit about where you've been? Because you do have an interesting background, where you are today, Angelo, and where you'd like to be if you can get fully funded, which you're really just could be a week away from being fully funded.
I mean, we certainly hope so. I mean, in seven
Yeah.
months, that would just be fantastic. No, and I appreciate the kind words, honestly. I mean, the individuals that you've introduced me to and yourself, I mean, I can't begin to be, to thank you guys enough for, all the positivity. And, yeah, just a little bit of background about me. I'm a chemist, I'm a biologist, I'm a natural born researcher. I've researched and questioned ever since I was a kid.
Good.
And
Yeah.
I've identified, I work in the pharmaceutical space, I work in the biologic space, on CAR T programs and TIL therapy programs and adenovirus vectors and lentiviral vectors. And, drug product costs are very, very high right now. And the cost of drug development is very, very high. And I feel like there has to be, maybe a remediation, right, that could be done. And, as a natural researcher, I kind of got down in, like how some people get down YouTube rabbit holes, right? So
Yeah,
I,
that's me. Yeah.
well, as a chemist, I get down NCBI rabbit holes, right? And I started identifying some really interesting patterns specifically regarding around terpenes and other plant-derived medicines. And I started putting the pieces together where I said, well, there might be a way for me to develop a medication, a breakthrough novel medication where we can eliminate steroid dependency in the market, right? Because obviously, especially in the case of anti-inflammatories in the inflammatory markets, steroids seem to be the standard of care, and they do a lot more damage than good, right?
Yeah.
And, to develop new medications, these companies raise tens of millions of dollars to get a novel molecule, to get it through an in vitro study, and then they do, your mice models, and you realize you just spent $9.6 million on a rat poison, right? And, I thought there has to be a way for me to blend all of these issues and solve them all at once. So, I compiled a paper. I wrote a paper on my own. I just thought, you know what? I'm not in a doctoral program. I graduated with my bachelor's, and I said to myself, well, you know what? Let me write a paper. And I'm going to write this paper so well that I'm going to get to my old biology professor. I'm going to see what he thinks. I'm going to see if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And back in 2020, when the pandemic came out, we had these stimulus checks. I said, oh my God, all my friends were going to Valencia, right? They were going, oh, Angelo, do you want to go on a trip? Oh, we're going to buy tickets. I'm like, no, I have something I got to do. So I took 600 of it. I retained my first attorney. And the next 600, I paid him to write up an NDA for me. And I went to my old plant bio professor and I said, Dr. Springer, could you read through this paper and tell me if I'm wrong? Tell me if something's not meshing, because I feel as though I've identified naturally occurring compounds that are working better than standard of care steroid options at half the dose with none of the side effects. I thought there must be something here. And he got back to me. He said, I've been doing plant biology for over 30 years. And not only have I never seen this before, I regret signing your NDA. Not only do I want to help you, I need you on campus. So I go back to my alma mater. St. Joseph's University out of Philadelphia. And, they had never really done anything like this. So, it is very novel for everybody. And they said, we would love to help you. We'd love to work with you. So I actually had to form my business in order to satisfy the contract. And, it opened the door to so many, all the facilities that I need, student teams, faculty, everybody trying to advance this initiative where we're trying to bring cost-effective and very, globally effective treatments for orphan diseases, patients that don't have a whole lot of options when it comes to care. Nothing breaks my heart more. A really good friend of mine lost his colon to ulcerative colitis, and he was on prednisone, a steroid. He was on 80 mg of prednisone every day for 2 years. Wow. And he still lost his colon, and now he has drug-induced lupus because he was on steroids for so long.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, well, hold on. If my drug was approved, there may have been a synergy there. There may have been a way for me to, form an adaptive trial, and maybe you could have used my medication, and maybe you wouldn't have had that side effect. Maybe you wouldn't have developed lupus.
Yes.
Right? So, in the long and short of it, because I could talk about this all day if you get me on a tangent, I'm trying to bring these I'm trying to make drug development more cost effective by leveraging these naturally occurring compounds. I don't want to spend millions of dollars to reinvent the wheel. Why fix what's not broken, right? Instead of building a new building or leasing out facilities and having a larger carbon footprint, why don't I leverage the infrastructure that gave me the degrees that I have now, that gave me the subject matter expertise to identify this problem, right? To identify the remediation for this issue. So by leveraging those contracts, by leveraging those relationships, I'm now able to, capital dependent, obviously, bring cost-effective treatments to patient populations that don't have a whole lot of options, and it's all naturally occurring, right? In a way, I'm able to then optimize these drugs, right, through a platform of different medications, and now we're talking about a 90% cost of overhead reduction. So in the case of regular drug development, where in order for a regular drug development company to get the facilities they need, to get to the patent, which we have done, your average cost in 3 to 5 years is about $18 million. And that's from JP Morgan Chase up in Boston, their investment bank. I've spent $200,000. So when you're talking about cost reduction and capital efficiency, that's what we do here, right? And again, the goal of this is to increase those patient outcomes and leverage already established infrastructure and already established data so we can not only build upon it and optimize it, but let's start from somewhere.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Tessa, do you have any questions on anything that he said? Okay, I didn't
No,
know.
I just have to say good job because, obviously you've gotten a long ways on just a very small amount, which is exciting. And it sounds
Yeah.
like you're so passionate about it. So I don't have no questions, just kudos to you for getting this far.
Thank you so much. And another fulfilling part about this that, it brings me back home because again, I graduated from St. Joseph's University out of Philadelphia. And, I went to school for chemical biology. It's basically biochemistry, concentration in chem and bio. And in order to get an entry-level job in this job market, what do you need? You need experience. Well, how on earth am I going to get a year or 3 years of experience if I just graduated? Right. So by leveraging this relationship with the university, I'm able to bring students, right? So I have a bunch of student teams and they produce quality work. So what I did was I basically am leveraging their capstones. So if I could give you an example, right? A real world example, you have, students that are doing pharmaceutical marketing, right? And they have to do a capstone assignment where they have to
So you're referring to
simulate.
the capstone project in college.
Yeah,
That's what I thought you were referring to because I had them as well. Go ahead.
exactly. So instead of doing a capstone assignment where you're simulating a condition, why don't you just work with me, right? I need pharmaceutical marketing. I'm a chemist, right? In order for me to identify market trends and market traits and how to infiltrate and how to disrupt and, sure, I could do that, but it's not really a good use of my time, no? And I know that you're already doing it. So instead of me working on it on my own, why don't I leverage your expertise? You're the ones that went to class for this, right? You're the ones that have the passion for this. So these students are now working for me as interns for research for credit capability. But as opposed to just saying that they're in a curriculum, right, getting credit hours, they're actually working for a startup pharmaceutical company. So now all the students that have worked under me in the past couple of years, all of them are getting jobs right before they graduate because they have experience in the field when they graduate. So these are things that I didn't have that experience when I was in college. There was nothing like that. And maybe at larger institutions, your UCLA's or your Berkeley's, right? There might be, more opportunities, or your Harvards, your Yales, your Colgates, but we're not all going there, right? So I thought, I saw a need, I filled a need, right? I'm trying to develop these medications and I need assistance, and let me leverage subject matter expertise, and they could come in all shapes and sizes, all ages. And, that's another thing that I feel has been just really, fulfilling for me is being able to help my alma mater and to help my fellow alumni. And they are so passionate. They love working for me. They get done with class and they say that, they'll do their final presentation. They're like, Angelo, I'm curious, is the position still open? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm not even getting a salary. I've been doing this 3 years and I've worked full time still. So I hope you don't think that you're going to get a salary out of this. They're like, no, I want to work for you. I want to do this for you. And it's really moving, One of those students, he has very severe asthma and he actually had to go on medical leave. And he was finishing his work in the hospital, in the ICU. And I was like, I'm not going to name names. You don't have to do this. This is for your class. I understand that. And you want to get it done. But, we're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Get better and we'll feel better. And he said, no, the reason why I want to get this done is because I'm currently taking these steroids. I've been taking steroids for years. And I think it's doing more damage than good. And I feel fulfilled knowing that I could help you get this drug to market because quite frankly, I want to take your drug. I think your drug will help better for me. So I actually see it in real time. A student who's working under me, this intern who is working while they're in the hospital, he is not working on any other school projects, right? He's on medical leave. He's on leave from the university, but he's still doing this for us because he was like, I want this to get to market because I want to be in that clinical. I want to take your medication. I think it would work better for me. And it can make you cry. I mean, my directors and I, we were tearing up. So, there's so many different facets to this where there's just so much fulfillment because there's so much unmet needs. And I believe that we can really fill these needs. But again, it's at the end of the day, everything comes down to money, right? Everything's a capital
Yeah.
dependent process. And, we can be as cost efficient as possible. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? If you don't want to spend money on a car, but you have to go take a bus, right? Well, guess what? You still need $225 to get on the bus, right? You're not spending $470 a month on a car note, but guess what you need? $225 a day.
Yeah. Thank you, Angelo. You really did a great job of helping us see where the problem is that needs fixed
Mhm.
and then the solution that you bring to it. And I am not going to end this without asking you some nutrition questions because I know
Let's go.
last time I did,
Let's
and I know
go.
we kind of got into the whole supplements thing.
Disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist, but yes.
Oh, no, I wish you wouldn't have said that. No, but you do know about this kind of stuff more so than a doctor that's taken zero nutrition classes. So
Yeah.
we talked about supplements, and you brought up a good point that it's known as, your exact words were almost like the snake oil,
The new
right?
snake oil salesman. Yes.
And
Detox drinks.
there's a really good book. I've mentioned this before, one of my favorite books, and it's by this professor that wrote a book that's almost similar. Do you know this guy?
I know this book. One of my professors had this book.
Yeah, it's really
That's
good.
awesome. That's a
It's
small
almost,
world.
he wrote it was originally called Maverick Mindset. Did you know that? And then it
No.
was done in this book, and he's done a lot of it's almost like a modern version of Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
And one of the things, chapter number 1 says, goal setting is for couch potatoes. And what he means is that people that are really fit, that like working out, they don't have to set a goal, right?
Yeah.
It's just in them. And he mentions that he interviewed Michael Jordan, and he asked Michael Jordan, have you ever set a goal to play basketball? And he asked Larry Bird, and both were offended with that question. They're like, why would I have to set a goal to do what I'm passionate about? So that's why he titled the first chapter, Goal Setting is for Couch Potatoes. Well, the other thing he talked about is people that read business books. And statistically, if you read business books, you're not going to be very successful in business. So he even talked about like that book, Good to Great, which I have it on my bookshelf. Well, he decided to interview all the people that were interviewed in that book.
Oh.
And he's like, I bet that these principles will work for it. And he's like, none of those people had even read the book, right?
Yeah.
And he talks about the former CEO of Southwest Airlines that was in that book, Good to Great. Well, have you ever known him, Herb Keller, or know anything about him? I went to an event once that he had, and somebody raised their hand and said, do you have any good books that you recommend? And he said, I have a confession to make. I've never read a business book in my life. It's like, and you know who else they asked that question to? Jamie Dimon. And he answered the question really well, which is exactly how it was answered here
Yeah.
about supplements. Let me get to it.
Yeah.
Jamie Dimon said, you really think it's that easy? All you have to do is read 3 to 5 business books
Amen.
and apply them, and you're going to become successful. That's all you have to do. And he says in the book, it's just as idiotic as the people that go in and buy supplements. He said, do you really think all you have to do is take a vitamin here, and all of a sudden you're going to be fit? And so he said, that's why the self-help industry, people continue to buy more and more books, and they continue to buy supplements because they buy that supplement and they put it on the shelf, if you will, right? And then when that one doesn't work, they do the other and the other and the other. Okay. So I told you that I take a lot of the greens, right?
Yeah.
That are powder. So I have this. I brought this that's like a powder, and it's supposed it has and supposedly it has kale,
Lyophilized kale and lyophilized spinach and
broccoli, all of this stuff. And I mentioned to you that the other day I put it in my drink.
Yeah.
And while I was drinking, I thought, I'm supposed to believe that one scoop is eating all of this, 2 bags of spinach, so all of this, and I can get all. And I thought, really? And Tessa, I mentioned to Angelo that sometimes I feel like I get bloated when I take those anything that's powdery
Mm-hmm.
substance. And I have a friend that helps people when they're having that issue
Mm-hmm.
with testosterone, right?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
And he said, do you know what the major issue of why they're having problems down there? It's because they take those
Yeah.
supplement things, the
Yeah.
powder and protein and all of that.
Pre-workout and protein powder and
And what that does is, you and I both know this,
Mhm.
it is processed,
Yes,
right?
very processed.
So if then that worked, then and then that can affect that can also could potentially get you prostate cancer.
I mean, I like to think, and let me just go off by saying, especially about the whole, setting goals and stuff. Setting goals is great and fine, but it reminds me of like the standard, when it comes to like a dreamer, in order for you to be a dreamer, you have to be asleep, right? You have to get up. You have to go do something, right? So in the case of like somebody who wants to work out, you could spend days, hours defining the perfect workout regimen. I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to count my macros. I'm going to do 3 sets of 10
He
minutes.
says those people, it never works.
Have you tried just going to the gym and maybe just try lifting one of them? Just lift one or two of them, right? Just do a couple workouts, right? But you got to do it, right? So it's the standard. It's the nature of the dreamer. The nature of the dreamer is they have to be asleep, and that's the first thing I go to.
So you would recommend for people to stay away from even vitamins, but specifically powdery type stuff. Can you
I,
touch
you
on
know,
that,
I think,
please?
I take a multivitamin every morning, right? I like my vitamin C's.
Okay.
But, if I have a cold, vitamin C isn't really going to do much for me, right? And when it comes to these, power greens and stuff like that, oh, it's the equivalent of broccoli and could I make a suggestion? Eat spinach. What's wrong with
Yeah.
spinach? Humans have, we've evolved hundreds of thousands of years. Okay, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution from Homo habilis to Homo erecti and Neanderthalis and Homo sapien. And you know what they did? They ate meat and they ate vegetables, right? And they ate berries. And there was no processing of some power green drink, right? They just ate the food. And I think a lot of the problems that, individuals see right now, because there's such a focus of, instant gratification. Oh, I don't feel well. Take this pill. Oh, I feel down. Take this pill. Maybe just try going outside, go for a walk a little bit. See if you could explore those options first before you start getting into some sort of synthetic or some sort of crutch, right? Because the minute you start putting things in your body, you're going to introduce one thing, you're going to solve one problem, you're going to create four down the line, right?
Okay.
Just like
So,
one of the things that really, it hurts my heart. It makes me, the detox drink.
right, I was
Now,
just about to get that. Yeah.
and I understand that some people really do believe this, but if you want to convince me that some sort of herbal, you know, root drink is going to work better than my liver or kidneys, I have news for you. The liver and kidneys are your detox. That is your filter. That's your Brita filter of your body, right? You do not need some, very obscure route and you're going to get 20% off if you refer five of your friends. You see how it becomes one of those, right? It becomes like it becomes very marketing based after a while. It doesn't really become about the root at all. So, we're going back to the powder greens. I think, could it hurt just maybe to have a couple more spinach salads in your life, right? Instead of you taking that drink and instead of having protein powder and a power green drink, I would recommend maybe eggs and spinach, right? Steak and eggs and spinach. And you just eliminate all the vitamins and nutrients and antioxidants that these individuals will synthesize in a lab and lyophilize and make a powder of. So we can all drink it with all of these different preservatives and dyes and all these things. Spinach is green because of the components that are in the leaf, and just eat them. There's no green 30 or red dye 40 in a spinach leaf, right? So, I think that there's where you can't eliminate, you substitute, right? And I think, especially in the case of vitamins, right? As opposed to taking all these different vitamins, maybe have a more enriched diet, right? I think it all comes down to food at the end of the day. There's a reason why, most Eastern populations have the longest life expectancies with them. And you're talking about individuals who are 80 to 90 years old, who are active, who are functioning, who do not have memory issues, who are not obese. And you want to know why? Because they eat leeks and bok choy and fish and chicken, and they grow it from the ground in their backyard, and they eat it right at the table, right? I'm not like, farm to table, right? That slogan, but it's really what it is. And I believe that we would solve a whole lot of problems if we remove the canned good and the preserved processed food and got back to produce. Enough with process. Let's go to produce.
Yeah.
And with all that being said, though, Tessa, I told him that you got me turned on to this stuff. The mud water, he said this is good because it's mushrooms.
Yes.
So he claims, now it is powdery, but it's, do you know this stuff,
Powdery.
this mud water?
Well, again, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? I mean, there's a tremendous amount of nutritional benefit in mushrooms. And I do believe there's a lot of, a memory and cognitive, function that could really help with cognitive health. But what I don't like is not the stigma. It creates a pattern where you have a problem. I'm going to take this powdery drink for it. Or I'm going to take, and it just becomes another substance. But if you incorporate it into your lifestyle where you're eating right, I mean, sure, you could have that mushroom coffee, right? Or mud water. That's great.
Yeah.
If I'm going back to my steak and eggs and spinach in the morning, do you want to know what you can put in that pan as well? Sauteed mushrooms. Right. So it's the same thing, right? I mean, you're just
why? Whatever it is that you're putting in there.
You're fixing something that isn't broken. I'm right there with you. I'm trying to leverage components, natural components of plants as medication, so that way people didn't have to take medication, right? It's a very similar methodology, as opposed to, taking a mushroom and processing it into some sort of, powdery mixture. Just maybe incorporate more mushrooms into your diet, right? There's a way for you to satisfy that requirement. And I understand that there's a lot of ease in just mixing all the powders together and running out the door. But, I think taking the time to focus on everything that you're consuming, especially your food, I think you would see a tremendous change in your lifestyle, in how you feel just in a couple weeks. I mean, there was that one individual, Supersize Me, right? That one movie from the early 2000s, the guy who just kept on eating McDonald's, right? And he was depressed and he was feeling terrible. And, you're talking about a sandwich that has 1,250 calories in a sandwich, right? And, it's all about what you eat, what you put in your body. And I think that people are straying away from the complexity of cooking. Cooking is not that complicated. Chicken salads are not that complicated. People would rather just, let me buy this powder, throw it in my water, I'll pound it while I'm in traffic, because it's all fast paced. We're all just such a fast moving, society. Sit down, digest your food too. That couldn't hurt too. I think that's a very important part of this. When you take these lyophilized powders and you get super absorption, right?
I get bloated. Yeah.
There's, you have to let your body your body has evolved to a point based on the patterns of hundreds of thousands of years of pre-humans and humans eating food the right way. And I think when you're trying to optimize that platform, there's no need to optimize that.
Thank you. Tessa will tell you, she knows that my two favorite subjects to talk about is either personal development or nutrition. So I love this. Tessa, do you want to ask him? You can ask him a nutrition guy. You think I did it all with all the...
No, I think you're good. I think you are.
Why don't you close us out of here like you want?
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, of course, Angelo, for being on today. If you all that are watching have not yet hit the subscribe button, you can hit that and get notifications when we go live on Fridays at noon. So we'll see you all next week. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye now. Thank you so much.